Welcome to the Missouri Woods and Water Podcast with your host, Nate Thomas. Got a good show today. I'm excited about this one, especially for folks who, are thinking about getting into bow hunting. We have Josh Kirchner on, who is the author of a new book called Becoming a Bowhunter. And it's basically everything from A to Z about getting into bow hunting, from, picking your bow to the art of hunting, etc., etc. Awesome book that you should gift to somebody who is thinking about getting into bow hunting, or a new bow hunter, or whatnot. It'd be an awesome gift to give to folks as well. So let's get to our sponsors before we get into today's show, and we're going to start it off with let's see here. How about Lucky Buck, LuckyBuckMineral.com. By this time, season's about to start in Missouri. It'll be close to starting by the time you hear this one. It's a little late, but I keep Lucky Buck out all year. What I'll do is I'll start to taper down how much I put out there. So right about now, the next time I dump, it'll be about half a bucket. And so that saves you, some time and some money a little bit as the season kind of goes throughout. Keeping it fresh so that they've got it, but you don't need to put near as much out as you do during the spring. Black Ovis, use our code MWW10 for 10% off. Like we talked about in last week's show, be on the lookout for our giveaway that's coming up with them. $2,000 worth of gear, and should be pretty easy to enter as well. Check them out, blackovis.com. Camo Fire, hop on the app, check out that deal, the daily deals that they give you, and find some last second gear, because it's good prices. On X, use our code MWW20 for 20% off. Got to go to the website to do that. People are out west. Now's a good time to be using On X. Just texted a buddy of ours who just started using On X over another company and was asking how he can share items with people that he's got on his lease. And pretty simple. Micah showed him how to do it and was done. So OnX is simple to use, man. Get on there, check them out. Reveal cameras by Tacticam. I am loving the new 3.0s that I've got. I've got 2 of them out right now. Should be putting 2 more out soon, and hopefully we'll be moving them around as the season gets underway. But that's what we've got going right now. Midwest Gunworks. Use our code 5OFF. That is the number 5OFF. MWW. For 5% off anything on their website. Check them out. Guns parts, shotgun stuff, and ammo. So check them out. athlonoptics.com. Find a dealer near you. It's about time to start thinking about rifle season out here in Missouri if you're a rifle hunter, and putting a nice Athlon optic on there would be a good idea in my opinion. That's all any of my rifles have anymore. I sold all my other stuff. So the only thing I've got are Athlon scopes on my stuff. Lifetime warranty, industry best warranty. You break it, they'll take care of it. And then last but not least, Morel Targets, MorelTargets.com. Been shooting the hell out of them, and really enjoying the new bag target, the new Mod Pro, more than I have ever enjoyed a bag target, because I've never really been a bag target guy until I got that one, and it's been pretty awesome. So check out Morel. Subscribe to us on our YouTube channel, Missouri Woods and Water. Follow us on the social medias. Hop on, if you would not mind, hop on to Apple Podcast or Spotify and leave us a 5-star review. We would really appreciate it. Check out our website, MissouriWoodsandWater.com as well. And that's all the housekeeping I've got for you today. So let's get into our show with Josh Kirchner. This is the Missouri Woods and Water Podcast. Okay, with me today we've got Josh Kirchner. What's up, Josh?
Not much. Just kind of the stoke is high. Hunting season is officially here. For like fall hunting season just started. I just got back from a 9-day bear hunt, which was fruitless, but be back after those things in
Uh,
October.
yeah. Yeah, the rest of the guys are actually in Colorado right now elk hunting as we speak. I'm the one
Oh,
who
cool.
was.
Yeah, I'm leaving. I'm leaving Sunday for that.
Are you? Nice, nice. Well, I
Yep.
hope you're having luck. I just actually texted Andy today on his inReach, and they had some bugling actually opening morning, which is very uncommon for the unit that we're in, especially this early.
Hmm.
Um,
Okay.
it used to be an OTC unit, and
Yep.
now it's not, but still a lot of people there, and
Mhm.
so bugling is not something they see very often. So saw that day or heard that day one, but that's they haven't actually seen an elk yet. Um, and I'm just having what is that FOMO? I'm missing. There's no fear of missing
Yeah,
out. I am missing out. It is happening. I did not get to
you
go, and
are missing out.
it is
Yes.
happening. So the
Yeah, yeah,
fear is
no,
realized.
that's kind of been my experience in Colorado in the past too is uh there's a ton of people, at least where I hunt, there's a ton of people that I run into on the trail. Lots of hunters and recreational outdoors folks just hiking and stuff. But I honestly, I mean, in probably uh I don't know, 20, 30 days of backpack hunting in total in that place. Actually, goodness gracious, might be more like 40 or 50. I don't remember. But I've only run into one person off the trail. So I really hope that's my experience on this hunt coming up. I hope
Yeah,
that, I see people, I know I'm going to see people on the trail, and I don't camp far from the trail either. It's just kind of easy, centrally located. It's like a highway right there, right? Okay, let's jump on this and we'll shoot this way and then we'll pop off the highway. But Colorado is kind of weird like that, man. Like for the first time I ever went there, it was like, oh yeah, this place has the biggest elk herd in the country. Where the heck are they? you know, and like you'll hear some bugling, um, one day, and then you might not hear a peep for 3 days, and
yeah,
then all of a sudden you get another little bump of bugling and stuff. So it's kind of a grind of a hunt, but it's definitely doable.
yeah. And we've always put ourselves a little bit against the eight ball when it comes to Colorado. Obviously, like I just told you, it used to be an OTC unit until this last year.
Yep.
So you're
Hmm.
going out, anybody can get a tag, and um, we're going out at the very beginning of the season before the rut has really kicked off, because of
Yeah.
farmers that are with us that need to get back and start harvest, and
Yep.
we're going to a unit where you can drive ATVs on trails at the base of these mountains,
Hmm.
so you can't really get too far away from. I mean, you can, but you can't at the same time. Like you're never more than like 2 miles away from any trail somewhere. Maybe 2, 3, four
Hmm.
miles
Hmm.
tops. So it's not like you can just get
Hmm.
back out in there and disappear. And most seasons it's been pretty good. And then COVID season, dude, I ran into like five dudes in the woods. Just like I was hunting, and then there's a guy. COVID, that what was that? 2020. That was a crazy year. I mean, there were people just crawling throughout that place. And then the next
Yeah.
year it was an OTC unit. It did fine. We didn't have that many people. We had one of the best years we've had as far as seeing elk. And then last year was another decent year. I was in Wyoming last year, so I wasn't there for the Colorado side. But yeah, it's kind of a crapshoot,
Hmm.
with Colorado at this point. I guess that's true anywhere for the most part. But um,
Yeah, you just never know. I mean, every year is a little different, Like I've been there. I've hunted the gamut in Colorado too, like from the opener all the way to the last week of season in there, and it's definitely different. Like the most intense interactions I've ever had is actually right around. I think it was right around when I'm leaving, actually, the eighth or ninth. Right from
mhm.
that point on. The most bugling, though, goodness gracious, I was there the last week in September one year, and it was like I was deer hunting, so I was like, oh my gosh, why don't I have an elk tag? They were just like lighting up all over the place. That like middle of the day too,
Yep.
just lighting up all over the place. Saw some incredible bulls, but it's just you got to find. I'm not like a giant elk hunter, and I'm pretty vocal about that. Um, but it like you can have crazy encounters from the opener anywhere to the end of season. It's just like finding that right elk.
Yep.
He's like just like in the mood. You know what I
Yep.
mean? He wants to fight or whatever. He wants to breed.
He's just
And it's
pissed
just
off
yeah,
enough.
that's why it's called hunting. Yeah, you got to
Yep.
hunt for him. That's why it's called hunting. So
Yeah, that's right.
so yeah,
Well, we got off on a tangent right off the bat, and that's typical for our show. So that's well, I'm not going to even apologize for it. That's who we are. But before we do get into the actual subject, why don't you introduce yourself to everybody? Tell everybody who you are, where you're from, and what you do, and then we'll get into becoming a bow hunter.
yeah. So my name's Josh Kirchner. I live in down in Arizona, um, central Arizona, and had a fortunately had a dad that brought me into hunting and fishing and stuff from a young age. Some incredible memories from when I was a kid. And but the deer hunting side of things for me, the first deer hunt I went on, I believe I was 8 or 9 years old. And it was always just an annual thing for my dad and I. We would go out every year, deer camp. It was amazing, end of October. But then that was it. Hunting was done for me in my mind after that point. And then when I got older, mid 20s, early 20s, I really was like, goodness, I really want to just like immerse myself in this and learn as much as I can and really like try to learn how to be success consistently successful in the field because I see these guys and it's always the same ones or gals. It's always the same ones every year that they fill their tags. I'm like, why? How does that happen? You know what I mean? They're doing something right, and I wanted to know what that right was. So, um, throughout that entire process, as you can imagine, lots of failures, right? So I started trying to document that and so I started a blog called Dialed In Hunter, which is still active today. And that's kind of how I got my start in the industry, I guess. Like I didn't even know anybody was reading it. It was just me I kind of just saw like an online journal, honestly, for me to reflect back on, where I messed up, where I didn't, stuff like that. Maybe someday my future kid at the time, and now I do have a kid. That's wild. Uh, would be able to look back and see what dad was doing, before she was born. Um, but apparently there were people reading it, and a couple editors were reading my blog, and just started getting emails. Be like, "Hey, would you write for the us? Would you write for us?" Blah blah blah. And first got my first article ever published in Bear Hunting Magazine, and the writing thing for me just kind of snowballed. So now, almost 10 years later, I am a full time. I work full time in hunting media, so I do freelance writing, photography, video, kind of do a little bit of everything. And obviously, like we're going to talk about, I've written a couple books. So that's me.
Nice. Hey, well, you've got a one up on me here. So, you said you started Dialed In Hunter, started the blog. You didn't know if anybody was reading it. This is the same thing with our
Yeah.
podcast, but nobody started listening yet. So, I mean, unfortunately, not anybody's going to hear this but me and you. But hey, it is what it is, right? But yeah, I mean, so I'll get into how you and I came together. So I talked about this a little bit before we started recording. We get questions a lot from the listeners that we actually do have, but we get questions a lot about, hey, I'm a new bow hunter. Like, what should I get? What bow should I buy? What release would just some detailed questions sometimes, some not very detailed at all. Just, hey, I want to get into bow hunting. What should I do? And we've done a few
Hmm.
shows. We recently did a show, me and Micah, about you have $1,000 to start hunting as a rifle hunter. Now, this was a rifle topic, and what would we buy if we were a brand new hunter that had zero anything, and we had to go out and we only had $1,000 to spend? What would we buy? And we've done shows before on like a new bow hunter, but nothing like from top to bottom type of deal. And
Yeah.
so I don't know what I was doing, but I'm sure I was on Instagram scrolling, uh,
Hmm.
and I came across your book, um, a
Mm.
reel or something about your book, and becoming a bow hunter. So I read more about it, and this is exactly what I was kind of thinking about when I see all these questions from all of our listeners and people just throughout the industry. So what made you think about writing the book first off? Like what? And then I guess we can talk about the premise and then kind of go through some of the high points or wherever we want to go with it. But what was the idea behind it?
So, when I first got into all this, resources were pretty limited, in terms of like learning how to bow hunt or just hunt, like, rifle hunt, doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Resources were pretty limited. I was the kid that, I was subscribed to, Bowhunter magazine, and I read every single one from front to back, trying to just soak in any little bit of info that I could that would help me. The hard part about most of hunting media, though, um, was most of it is geared towards the white-tailed deer. And there's only so much of it that's geared towards Western hunting, and to really break that down to Western bow hunting is even more of a niche. So finding information was pretty limited. So what did I do? I turned to my fellow resident bow hunter, right? Like, and I wanted to, I started reaching out back in the forum days, like I was on forums and stuff,
Yeah, those are
and
still alive and well for the
I
most
don't
part.
know.
I think some
Yeah,
of
there's a
them.
few of them that are still
Yep.
kicking. Yeah. And I reached out. I don't know how many private messages I sent to people, but the amount of replies that I did not get back was quite staggering. And I understand, like, you work really hard, right, to find your hunting areas, and develop your hunting style, and your success, from that means a whole lot. But I was just really, really hungry for just some type of um, advanced mentorship, if that makes sense. Because my dad, like I said, my dad got me into hunting, but
Yeah.
like, dad was my dad. You know what I mean? And like, he had a full time job, and he, like, the guy doesn't live hunting, right? He loves it, but he doesn't live it. Um, so there was a few people that did get back to me, and that really meant a lot to me. And some of the words that they told me stick with me to this day. So the reason I wrote the book was because, honestly, I wish that I had something like this when I started bow hunting. Like, there's a lot of questions that I think quote unquote expert bow hunters, like, kind of maybe might scoff at a little bit, and like think they're stupid questions. But
Mm-hmm.
gosh, dude, like, there's so many things, so many little nuances in what we do. You can't blame people, especially with all of the different platforms out there, with all the different platforms comes different opinions,
Right.
and then everything gets muddled together, and it's like, what do I believe? Like one guy, I remember, like, I don't know how many times this has happened, but like, people message me about, like, oh, hey, you know is this enough of an arrow? And they're shooting like 550 grains or something like that.
Damn.
Is this enough for a mule deer or whatever? I'm like, goodness gracious, that's like a rocket.
Shit, I wish I had
Like,
550. Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, you don't have to, or they're like worried about shooting a mechanical broadhead and stuff because of all the stuff that people say. Here's the thing: not all mechanical broadheads are created equal. Okay, and like, not all bows are created equal. This is just how it is. All right, and this is part of the fun of doing all this, is figuring out what works for you. And that's really like the underlying message with the entire book, is like, I lay out from front to back, from the point of, you don't even have a bow yet, like, how do you buy a bow, right?
Right.
Like from that point all the way to you packing an animal out and going back to your truck, and everything in between. But do I reveal like my methods and stuff like that? Absolutely. But the message behind all of it, though, is like, listen, this is what works for me, and I'm going to tell you, but it might not work for you. What I'm hoping to do, that my goal with the book was to really give the brand new bow hunter some sort of foundation to stand on, to have some sort of direction. Because you hear this all the time, with all sorts of things, whether it's hunting or not. And people say, I don't even know where to start.
Yep.
It's
Get
like,
that
well,
question all
this
the
right
time.
here, the book, this is where you start. Like, read this. You might not agree with me, but I guarantee you're going to have, if you're new to this, you're going to have a bit of a different perspective with some direction.
Yeah. And
So,
that's what when I look at like when some of the questions we get, I look back on how lucky I was when I started bow hunting because I had
hmm
people in my community, my life that
hmm
basically held my hand. Said, "Hey Nate, here's a
hmm
bow. You can start off with this bow. Here's a release. Here's these things. Now go." And when I'd have a question, I'd ask my brother-in-law Russell, who was the one who held my hand the entire way. Basically, hey, what do I do? What am I doing wrong here? What do I do here? What do I do here? I had that,
yeah,
but
yep,
the people that send us questions, they might not have anybody. They might just be some dude from the city who decided this is something I want to do. I really feel like I would love it, and they just want to start, and they don't have anybody to ask any
yeah,
questions to. And so they're reaching out to guys like me or whatever. And, this book would be that guy to hold your hand in essence, right? Like it's a
yeah,
version of
mhm,
Josh, in paper form,
right,
walking right there with you. So, it's really just the perfect what I would want to, because you have somebody reach out to you, right? And like you said, a lot of people didn't respond to you when you reached out.
hmm
It's tempting to be like, I don't want to spend the time to reply to this and tell them everything, that I would have to say. And a few of the people that
hmm
have reached out to us, I'm like, you know what, man, here's my phone number. Give me a call sometime because I do not want to
yep,
type all that out. Right. And,
yep,
but other times you're like, I got a lot of work to do today or whatever. I'll get back to them. And, I'd like to think I've gotten back to everybody, but man, I feel bad if I hadn't because that guy's in that same situation I was in when I first started and he or she might not
yep,
have anybody. So, the book is
hmm
a really nice, I guess jump off point for anybody that's wanting to get into to the bow hunting side. So, yeah, I mean,
and you gotta feel people out too, right? Like what you just said, like about, "Oh, here's my phone number." Like,
yeah, yeah, for sure.
dude,
I don't just give
I
it out
I've
anytime, but
done
yeah,
no, no, for sure. I've done the same exact thing, and like sometimes and if somebody writes me like a long detailed message, I'm like, okay, this dude's really thinking about this,
right.
right? And oftentimes it's local for me. It's usually like somebody. I get a lot of questions about like backpack hunting gear and stuff like that from all across the country, but in for Arizona in particular, I get a lot of people that ask me about Arizona black bear hunting. So like residents that want to get into it. So
Mm-hmm.
they brought me this big long thing, and I'm like, listen, this might deserve a cup of coffee. Let's just
Right.
go meet, and like I'll talk with you, and then you can kind of feel them out because you don't know like people's motivation, like how far they're willing to go, like to make it happen. And I tell them stories about like, listen, dude, when I started, I was I would I was a roofer for 15 years. Okay. I would roof
Mm-hmm.
and I'd get off work at, whenever, one, two, whatever,
Right.
go home. I'd drive hit and get to a trailhead by like midnight or some crap. Okay.
Yep.
Wake up in 3 hours, go hike in and hunt, or just it might have been a scouting trip and then come out and leave that night. Are you willing to do that?
Right.
Like you know what I'm saying? Like that's
Yeah.
there's it really it's like how much do you want it type of thing, right? How bad do you want it? And some people it flows through their veins and they want to live it, right? And
Yeah.
others they're like, you know what? I'm good with my week of hunting every year, and that's totally fine. Those are two different conversations.
They are.
Like,
Yeah.
so,
And it's the same thing in the whitetail woods. We'll have someone reach out to
yeah.
us, hey, I'm 65 years old. I just want to get into hunting, bow hunting. I've hunted with rifles most of my life, but that's only 10 days out of the year that I get a chance to do that. And I really want to get into
Yep.
bow hunting. And
Yep.
usually the first response I'll have is, "Hey man, like, are you going to be hunting out of a blind, a big ladder stand? Like, what are you wanting to do? Man,
Mm-hmm.
I've got a nice redneck out here, blind and all these. I'm thinking about doing that. I'll typically just say you should look into a crossbow because now they are
Yeah.
legal here to use all year long. You're 65 years old. You just got into it. Why don't you put the stack the odds in your favor and start with that? And if you just love
Yep.
it and you love the idea of an arrow going through a deer, then think about maybe a cross or a compound, and then we can go that direction. But where you are in your life, you've only rifle hunted. This is a nice start. I mean, it
Yeah.
could cost you more money in the long run because you buy a crossbow and then 2 years later you're looking at a compound, maybe. But by then you're not going to
Right.
care because you're hooked.
Right.
Um, and then
Yeah.
other people, hey, I'm 19 years old. I just got out of high school and I want to start bow hunting and I've got all this energy and
Mm-hmm.
blah blah blah. I'm like, well, you can start there probably, and all these different things that you can hunt with that the 65-year-old guy that just started might not do. He may, but he may not.
Right.
And
Right.
so yeah, you definitely have to, I guess, feel out, and you got to be honest with yourself too when you are sending messages to people like Josh or even us or whoever. What are you wanting to get out of it? Because
Right.
they're going to give you an answer that they think you need to hear potentially if they're going to
Right.
respond. And if you're lying to yourself, you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to go out west 3 months and I'm going to do all these things. And well, then sure, Josh might say, well, you need a pack that's going to be capable of packing meat, and you're going to need this and that. And if
Yep.
all you end up doing is sitting in a tree stand in Missouri, 400 yards away from your truck, you didn't need any of that stuff. So
Right.
there's different different ways to look at it for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So let's just
Yeah, and there's
start.
nothing. And
Go
oh,
ahead.
sorry, I was gonna say, and there's nothing wrong with any of them.
No, not at all.
Like some people, especially like out west, you know what I mean? Like I've said this before, but like, and I'm sure you know this, but a lot of Westies they poo-poo on whitetail hunting. I'm like, listen, these folks are thinkers. They're a different breed of hunter. Like their methods. I think you guys have such a more in-depth, intimate knowledge of animal behavior than we do because we're experiencing things oftentimes. Can you hunt like in a tree stand in a blind out west? Absolutely,
Sure.
you
Yep.
absolutely can. But oftentimes we're looking at stuff from 700 yards away, a mile away, or something like that, and there's only so much that you can absorb from that, right?
Yeah.
Um, Knowing where the animal is going to step, that's cool, dude.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So I think we all of us can learn from each other. That we're like I don't think Western hunters are better than whitetail hunters, and I don't think whitetail hunters are better than Western hunters. In the end, we're all hunters. We're just there's just a little bit of a different method to each of our madnesses.
And I 100% agree with that. I have said that's why I love whitetail hunting so much. That's why I love elk hunting. I love coyote hunting, because
Hmm.
none of those three types of hunting are even remotely the same. Now, like the
Right.
coyotes and elk, you're calling to them a lot of the times, sure, okay, but
Hmm.
the differences between those three animals is what makes me love them so much. It's
Right.
okay, you're right. Like with a whitetail, I'm setting up in a spot to ambush that animal. So I'm like
Right.
like a lion or I'm a predator
Hmm.
waiting for that whitetail hopefully to come by me and kill it. I'll sit
Hmm.
for 12 hours straight and hopefully see that one mature buck or whatever, right? With
Hmm.
elk, I'm running all over mountains trying to chase them wherever, I can. And calling to them, and sometimes you're not the most quiet in those woods as you're going over deadfall and all this other stuff. And then with
Oh yeah.
coyotes, you're attempting to make a coyote come to either fight or kill what you are trying to make it think you are. They're just so different.
Hmm.
Now I'm not shooting coyotes with a bow, although that would be fun. I have done it while I've been whitetail hunting, but not specifically, calling a coyote. So
Hmm.
you're definitely right. They're all different, and there are differences to the types of hunting um, patience and like prowess within each of those. And so I always laugh when whitetail hunters are like, nobody from out west could come sit for 7 hours and not go crazy. And,
Hmm.
Westies, making fun of us flatlanders when we try to, put some boots on and
Yeah.
climb up a mountain, which can be funny, I will say.
You're, yeah.
It is even when you're prepared, you're not really prepared. It still sucks, but yeah,
I
so
mean,
it's all different,
the impatience of Western hunters is comical as well. Like
right?
fortunately, dude, my dad, so he's from New York, so that's how he learned how to hunt was whitetail hunting. So my first hunting trips ever did not involve binoculars. We were sitting up against a tree
Mm-hmm.
and just sitting there and ambush hunting. So I learned that from a really young age and got developed this love for I still, dude, I swear, I come unglued. Okay, if I'm sitting there and I can hear something coming towards me, oh my goodness. That gets
Yeah,
me so jacked up as opposed to if I'm like spot and stalking something, I'm a lot more engaged and focused and kind of like on high alert of not messing up the situation, right? So you almost don't have time to get nervous. But dude, you're sitting there and you hear something coming and you can't see it. I
yeah,
love that stuff, man. That's one of the things I mean, that's one of the reasons we love it, right? Is stuff
yeah.
like that.
And everybody, like you said, that you can learn from other hunters. We ran into some
Yeah,
locals in Colorado a few years ago, and we met at the base of the mountain together. And they're like, "Hey, where are you guys going?" And kind of talked about where everybody was going because we did run into each other.
sure.
And so me and my brother-in-law were like, "Hey, we're gonna head this direction, but as soon as like probably about 9 o'clock hits and the wind does any movement up, we're going to bust ass upwards and we're going to try to set up off of the bench and we're going to try to ambush them as they're coming to bed." And he's like, "Huh?" And we're like,
Hmm.
"Well, you know, once the wind switch, we're screwed anyway. So we're just going to get through the woods and we're going to try to set up and wait for them over the next 3 or 4 hours to come in."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Are you going to be moving?" And we're like, "Nope, we're going to sit." He's like, "Huh,
Yep.
that's interesting way to think about it." And we're like, "Oh, it's just kind of like I think that was our whitetail brain going, well, if we can't get them to
Yeah.
call to us, then let's go where we think they're going to end up and kill them before they
Right.
get there." And
Right.
whereas he
It's
doesn't
just a
hunt
big old
whitetail,
deer,
so
right?
it's a different thing, right? Yeah, it's a big giant
Yeah.
deer,
Yeah.
giant,
Yeah.
yeah, and really
Oh
tasty.
yeah.
Um,
Yes.
but yeah, so let's get into the book. How does it start and kind of what I mean. Obviously, we can't go word for word here, but how does it start and how do you go through it?
So, it kind of opens up with I think the story that really hooked me to bow hunting. And I've told it before. I can tell it if you want, but
All ears.
yeah, no, it's basically in short, it was like my very first bow hunt ever in Arizona, and we were hunting mule deer and saw like 3 or 4 bucks the day before, which was very, very uncommon for us. We were always rifle October rifle hunters, so seeing a buck was honestly for us was like it was like a oh my gosh, there's antlers coming out of that deer's head, like that's how we thought. But during the rut, we're fortunate here in Arizona to be able to bow hunt during the rut, and you know how that goes. The bucks just come out of the woodwork. Bucks that you
Right.
may not have seen all year. So we were super optimistic. Got set up, and there was a fence line coming down right towards us that was all beat up. You could tell this deer were walking this fence line. So, and this is in pine forest. So we did what I just talked about. sat up against a tree, got in there real early, sat up against a tree and waited. And this buck, this mule deer buck, saw movement over the top of the ridge line, and he comes over and he's like, is that? It was like he was coming with the sun. Like he crests the horizon, and I can see like his antlers moving through the sun and like flickering in the sunlight, and like he's raking a bush and stuff, and just like it was like a hunting show, you know what I mean? When I was a
Yeah.
kid, and that deer walked right down, and I remember that deer very, very distinctly. Like he had this white patch on his back. He was an old mule deer buck, Roman nose on him, and I could see his breath. It was like
Yep.
11 degrees that morning, and that deer walked past me at 10 yards, and I couldn't move. I was just frozen, and then I like came to. I look over at my dad, and he's like, "Wait, like, why didn't you shoot him?" Blah blah blah. And I was like, "Oh, it's almost like I forgot I was hunting."
Right.
And I turn around, I get up, I turn around, and he's not there. And ever since then, that first hunt right there, that first archery hunt, that just hooked me on bow hunting. And I was like, I still rifle hunt and stuff like that, but if you ever asked me the question, if you had to hunt with one weapon the rest of your life, what would it be? It would absolutely be a bow. But I don't scoff at rifle hunting. I'm not one of those guys that think that bow hunters are better than rifle hunters. Like all of it's fun, but truly in my heart is bow hunting. Um, and then from there, I think it's important to kind of know where you came from. Like I dive into the chapter is called an ode to the greats, and I talk about like notable figures in bow hunting history, um, Art and Saxon Pope,
Right.
uh, Dwight Shue, Chuck Adams, all these guys that like shaped bow hunting in the past, and like were very monument. I talk about Cameron Haynes in there.
Mm-hmm.
Love him or hate him, guys. The guy, it deserves where he is. He's an incredibly hard worker, and I think he's I honest like he's a living legend. The guy at this point, people are going to
Yeah.
talk about him in 100 years. I feel so. I talk about all this, and like some of the names, like most people know Cam, but some of those names like Dwight Shue and Chuck Adams, like you'd be surprised the amount of new bow hunters that don't know who those people are. And
It's kind
I'm
of
like,
like learning the
guys, or like
greats,
Larry,
the NFL
yeah,
greats from
Larry
back
D.
in the day.
Jones.
Yeah.
Yeah, you like know like to know what these guys were accomplishing with so little in comparison to what we have today. Like we
Right.
got it good, dude. Our gear is unparalleled compared to what these fellas had. You know, and so I kind of go through that, and then I get into just where to start. Like how to go about buying a bow, and go through that whole process. I talk about how to shoot all the different kinds of releases. Um, Try to get you off on the right foot, because that's another rabbit hole that people get into, and
Oh
they
yeah.
they form bad habits and stuff. I see it all the time. You know, and
Let's
just the gears that go ahead.
I was gonna say let's if you want we can kind of get into that buying the bow thing first too because
Oh,
I'm a little bit different than somebody. I don't know. I don't hear this very often. Let me put it this way. If I were talking to a brand new bow hunter who needed to go get a bow, I would not
mm-hmm,
be the guy that told him to go find a used one on Marketplace or
mm,
I would tell him to go to a bow shop, a good bow
yep,
shop. I know
mm-hmm,
unfortunately, there are ones that aren't amazing out there, but most are pretty
mm-hmm,
decent. I would recommend a brand new person go to a bow shop so that they can kind of ask you what do you like? What do you know, do you have anything? Do you have any opinions? You might be like, I've never touched a bow in my life, so I don't know what I like, what I don't like. Well, a really experienced bow technician would be able to help you get into the bow that is the right fit for you.
yeah,
Yeah, it's more expensive than probably buying something used off Facebook, but I mean, You might be a dude that, like, let's say you don't know what you're looking at or looking for, and you go buy a bow that is, let's say you've got a 28-inch draw, and you go buy a bow that's only got modules, and it's a 32-inch. Well,
Mhm.
you're screwed. There's nothing you
Mhm.
can do with that bow.
Mhm.
Now you got to go buy, new cams or whatever. I've never bought a bow that way, so I'm not sure how that's set up. But
Mhm.
um, and you just don't know what you don't know. So the chances
Yeah.
of something going wrong up front was where I was kind of like, I would go to a
Yeah.
bow shop, man. And so then I ask them where they're
Yeah.
from, and if they're like, "Hey, I'm in the Kansas City area or whatever," I'll tell them who to go see. Hey, these three bow shops,
Mhm.
usually pretty good. Go check them out. You can go shoot some bows. You can also try different
Yeah.
releases that they've got. What feels good to you, you might not know, but they might help you out with that. So that's kind of the first. What are some of your uh, pieces of advice in the book about buying a bow?
Yeah, so I think you're spot on there, and I think we live in a day and age where DIY is a big deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's everybody wants to do everything themselves, and I respect that. But there's a reason why there are professionals, right? Like for instance, your air conditioning unit goes out. What are you going to do?
Call
Are
my
you
brother-in-law.
can sit there and Google, right? You can sit there and Google it and YouTube how to fix your AC unit, but I tell you what, that's going to be a lot less of a headache if you just called an AC guy
Yep.
and he's going to come out and he's going to fix it in 10 minutes or whatever, right? So leaning on your local pro shop I think is huge. And you know what, like if you don't know what pro shop to go to, it's not hard to do a little bit of research on all the pro shops in your area.
Nope.
You'll figure it out, like the ones that have like the rave reviews, there's probably a reason for that.
Yep.
So go check them out, and these folks are more than willing to help you out, let you try out bows and stuff like that. I mean, you're a potential future customer, right? Who's going to convert other people? Like what a great, like if a business isn't taking advantage, not to sound like, they're taking advantage of you, but like, dude, like if a pro shop isn't willing to help out a new bow hunter, they aren't worth a damn, in
Taking
my
advantage
opinion.
of a new opportunity, though. That's for sure. Like,
Right.
they help out a new bow
Absolutely.
hunter, they've got a customer for life. That person's going to spend
Absolutely.
thousands of dollars there.
So I think that's huge. And to go really feel, because you don't know what is going to feel the best to you. Like people can make bow recommendations all day long, but you know what? Like me, like there's certain bows that people like. I just don't.
Yep.
They don't feel good to me. So so that's why it's important. Go try them out, and while you're doing that, ask them like, "Hey, am I doing this right?" Like how's my form and stuff like that. And they're like more than willing to help out. It's a great jumping off point to see what you like. And if you can't pull the trigger on buying a brand new bow, at least at this point, you have more of an idea of what you do like.
Right.
Okay, like what you do. Like I really liked how this bow over here felt, right? And so maybe you could find a year or 2 year old bow that is pretty similar to that, right? I
Mm-hmm.
don't think there's anything wrong with buying used bows. The only thing I would say is just like if you do go buy a used bow, one, like look at the string, bring it into a pro shop, have them inspect it, inspect the limbs, just give it an overhaul, because I promise you, even a bow that's 8 years old, that bow is going to kill a deer just as well as a brand new bow.
Sure.
Okay, that's just the
Yeah.
truth. Okay, it might not feel as good. Okay, but like the arrow's gonna go where you want it to go. So that's where I would start out, and from there, like once you actually get the bow, um, uh, you know, I did a lot of hanging around those pro shops, talking to folks. I would be in there for hours hanging out, just having listening to hunting stories, also going to the archery range, meeting folks, obviously getting as much practice in as you can. On that note, something that I'm very upfront about in the book is you mentioned releases. And I think that when you buy a release, I think it is so, so important to have that person that you're buying that release from teach you how to properly use that release. An index finger release is a prime example of this. People look at it and they're like, "Oh, it's like a gun." You're
Yep.
right. And it's like, like that works for some people. Like some people just have that mental fortitude to be able to
Right.
fight the bad habits that come with that, but most people can't. So learning how to do something the right way from the get-go is a better avenue to take that is going to avoid more problems in the future. My dad used to always say, um, and he still says it, but if you learn how to do something the right way from the start, you don't know how to do it the wrong way.
Yeah.
So um, very very important with releases. Okay, because you can get like my buddy. And what this all really boils down to, for if there are new bow hunters listening to this, is developing target panic. Okay,
Yeah.
if you don't know what
Yep.
that is, go Google it. You'll figure it out pretty quick. But like
I
I
don't
have a
even like
friend, for
talking
instance.
about target panic because I feel like I might get it. It's kind of like,
It's like,
kind of
yes,
like AIDS or something. I don't want to talk about it.
the thing that shall not be named. Yes. Um, I have a friend that like I've taken videos of him before, and he literally, like, he'll pull his bow back, and his finger is shaking,
Yeah.
like trying to come around, and then he'll just all of a sudden boom,
Just
like, and
grab it.
and he'll say like, I don't know why I did that. That is from trying to do things on your own.
Hmm.
Like there is no shame. Get an archery coach. Okay, you want to be a good bow hunter, you got to be able to shoot a bow good. Okay, because
Right.
animals don't have dots on them. Okay, I'm not saying you got to be able to dot shot at 80 yards or anything like that, but have some semblance of like good
Wouldn't be a
form and
bad thing to be
technique.
able to do, though. I mean, it's
No,
not going to hurt you.
absolutely. Like if you can do that, yeah, that's awesome. Do that, but like, um, I think hunting skill over outweighs shooting ability. Personally, I think I know of several like high profile individuals that like they don't. I'm not going to name names, but they don't really know that much about bows at all. But they're
But
a
they know how to
damn
kill
good
stuff.
hunter,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so yes, learn the right way to shoot a bow, but also don't forget about people seem to forget that when you want to start hunting, you need to go out in the field. Okay. Before go out and scout. And even if you don't know what you're doing, you have to start somewhere.
Hmm.
I promise if you go out that first time, you're going to learn something that you didn't know when you left, before you left, right? And so all of that has to start somewhere. I remember, my first bear hunt I ever planned. I'm walking around the woods, and I'm like, well, the books say that this is bear sign. That's how I started, man.
Yeah. It
You
looks like
know,
bear
like
shit to
like
me. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, and even like, is that bear scat? Like I didn't know, right?
Yeah.
Like, so you have to go out, and there's nothing like experience is the best teacher out there. So like, yes, like spend the time getting a bow, learning how to shoot. That's incredibly important, but don't forget that you are trying to be a hunter, not a target shooter,
Solid
right?
point.
Like
Yeah.
go get into the field and learn. A lot of folks, they get wrapped up in gear so much on a lot of things that don't matter. Like three fletch versus four fletch. Dude, who cares? Does it Can you hit the dot? Like can you hit what you're looking at? That's what matters. Like
Yeah.
the elk, I promise you, doesn't care if that's a three fletch or a four fletch arrow, or the deer or the bear, whatever you're hunting.
Yeah.
So that gets me riled up, dude. I'm sorry. But that stuff, like people paying attention to so much of these little things, and it's like, listen, I'm not the most lethal guy out there. Like I put stuff down on the ground every single year, but like some of these folks asking these questions, I think need to be, and I mean this in like the most sincere way, like you need to be honest with yourself and like, have you killed anything? You know what I mean? Like do you have like all the things you're talking about matter in the grand scheme of things, and you probably can't tell the difference between the two when you're shooting anyways. Like I
Maybe it's
promise you,
like
you're
a
probably not that good.
redirection of
I,
focus.
right, exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Like and but the thing that gets all the press, like you go on YouTube, I mean, I make these videos is all like tinkering with gear and stuff. It's
sure.
fun,
Yeah.
but you also have to go tinker in the field.
Hmm.
You have to learn your craft. Like what are bears eating this time of year? Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like we're hunting here. You have to like learn about animal biology.
Yeah, like
So sorry, I
instead of
got off on another
watching, no,
tangent.
it's
Yeah.
perfect because instead of watching videos of like three fletch versus four fletch, maybe watch
Yeah.
videos about the behavior of a black bear in this scenario, right?
Right.
And that makes sense
Yeah.
because you do get caught up, and I'm probably the lead out of the three of us. I'm like the old man who doesn't want to change. Like for
Yeah.
instance, last year was I finally got a new bow. Before that, I shot a 2010 Bowtech Assassin my entire bow hunting career because it
I
worked
remember
and it
that
killed
bow.
stuff. And I still have it because I
Yep.
couldn't sell it. And I still shoot three fletch blazers because they work and I
Mm-hmm.
don't have a problem shooting them. So I don't need to look at all these AAE Max 4, I'm sure they're great, but the
Yeah.
arrow that I have with blazers on it has always went that way and hit where I wanted to hit it. And so I don't do a lot of messing around. Now the area that I
Yeah.
do screw around with a lot is broadheads. That I have
Mm-hmm.
a problem with, um, because I think my OCD brain goes, we spend all this money on this nice
Mm-hmm.
bow. Like I finally got an expensive bow last year, right? And I get these
Mm-hmm.
nice arrows, and I do all this stuff. I should really pay attention to the thing that kills the animal the most, which is the thing on the end of the arrow, right? Like I should care about
Right.
that. So I do so much
Right.
research about broadheads and of course, you got the FOC debate now, like heavy arrows compared to light
Mm-hmm.
arrows and, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
That I spend too much time worrying about that sort of stuff.
Worrying
And
about
then
that sort of stuff.
you got stuff like, you're shooting an elk or a whitetail, or you're shooting a bear or a whitetail. Like, what type of
Mm-hmm.
broadhead would you want to use? So, yeah, you can go down all kinds of rabbit holes, but you're spending that time maybe just on that, and you haven't even looked at an elk walk on a video in the last 6 months or something, or you haven't, been out in the
Yeah.
woods. That's a good point.
And I talk about all that stuff in the book. Like I talk about like all the different kinds of broadheads, like the FOC thing, which is kind of more of a comical part of my book because it really frustrates me. Um, and and I mean a lot of it is because of you know, I do spend a lot of time in a pro shop hanging out, and these guys tell me stories,
Mm-hmm.
about like literally the people that are consuming a lot of this content out there. And there's nothing wrong with it. Obviously the people that are making the content have found success with the things that they're doing, but I think there's a little bit more under the rug with some of that stuff than the new bow hunter can see, right? Like
Right.
maybe the person that is making the content, maybe they're probably an excellent shooter or something like that, right? Which all matters. Like
Right. It does.
if you torque the crap out of your bow, I'm sorry, you're not going to get a fixed blade broadhead to fly as good as this other guy over here.
Right.
It's gonna be different, right? You might have more tuning issues than this other guy. Okay, um, and that's and at the end of the day, though, with all of that stuff, my big thing with the broadheads, okay, I've done all the unnecessary tinkering and stuff like that. Uh, is the broadhead gonna hit what I want it to hit? Not 3 out of 5 times. It needs to be 5 out of 5 times
Right.
because 4 out of 5 times creates doubt in my head. I never want to look at it and be like, why did that arrow do that?
Yeah.
And there's been some broadheads that I've used in the past that they're excellent broadheads, but every now and then I would be like, what the heck? Where'd
Right.
that come from?
And you know it.
And
You know it wasn't your
for
shot. You're like, no, the shot was good. I felt good. Nothing is wrong here.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Yep.
And it's like, I mean, to the point where, like, listen, I'm not Levi Morgan, okay? But like at 60 yards, I can keep him there, okay? And I was shooting a big, like the big, huge block targets in like a pro shop, giant
Yep.
white ones.
Yep.
I was shooting something about that size, and for whatever reason, this broadhead that I was shooting, and I shot it out to 100 yards with a field tip. At 60, one of them just decided to not even hit the target.
Just oh
Like
gosh.
it completely airballed it to the right. So like that was one of those times where I'm like, why did that? Like, what was that? There's no way. Do I expect to hit a quarter every time? No, absolutely not. But the target that big, yes.
Right.
Like
Right.
every time, you know what I mean? So so that's the biggest thing for me because like in the field, like confidence. If you don't have like ultimate confidence in your equipment in the field, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Um, I've been drawn back on animals before wondering if my arrow was going to hit what I wanted it to hit. And that's a crappy feeling, man. It really
That
is.
that is. Yeah.
So I don't care to get back to broadheads. Like, it doesn't matter to me if a broadhead is $100 or $30. Will it fly? Can you get it to fly with your field tip and over and over again hit what you want it to hit? That's the most important thing to me. I don't care how expensive it is.
Yeah. In which case, practice is important because I feel like one area new
Exactly.
bow hunters and bow hunters that have been around can fail in is they
Hmm.
shoot their bow a lot. Great job, guys.
Yep.
That's a good thing. But then they don't
Hmm.
shoot the broadheads a lot,
Yeah.
and that could be where you get yourself into trouble. I mean, and I'm not going to run anybody down because that's not what I'm here to do. It was just my experience.
No,
I
no, no, no.
have I have put $100, $120 broadheads on my arrows and struggle with them and left
Hmm.
them to go back to $35 packs.
Yeah.
And that's just because it didn't work for my setup for whatever reason. I would put a broadhead on, I would try to marry it up the best I could with my fletchings, and that was a whole
Hmm.
ordeal in itself. And I would get those ones that the shot was good and it was 8 inches high and right, and then the
Yeah.
next one would be right on, and then 5 or 6 shots later you'd have one that was off, and it was also loud, and I'm like, I can hear that damn thing flying through the air. I don't like
Yeah.
this. And so that was just my experience. Like, so it's not always the more expensive they are, the better they are. It's just,
Right.
sometimes the material might be better that they're using or the machining, whatever. But I'm not saying you don't get what you pay for, but you do want to practice with
No.
them so that you can figure
No.
out what works for you.
Yeah, and 100%. And like that, like all of those heads, they're good. They're great heads. It's very high quality material. Um, and you know what? Uh, I think there's something to be said about your style, right? Your style of hunting.
Mm-hmm.
If it works for you or not. Like me, I don't care. You know, people can send me emails like, I sometimes I take long shots. That's just how it is out here, down here in the West. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
like a 60-yard shot down here, that's not even a blink. I'm not even gonna think about that. 80-yard shot, very common. I know one of my friends killed a coos buck at 135 yards with his bow.
That's a shot.
I'm not saying that you should go and do that, okay, but this guy, I would trust him to shoot 100 yards more than I would trust other people to shoot 40.
Right.
Like just like the broadheads, like not all shooters are created equal either. Some folks they are just not good past 50 yards, and that's fine. You have to know that about yourself.
Right.
You don't have the time to put in whatever it is. You have to know that. So, like elk hunters specifically, a lot of these folks are hunting dark timber. They're not shooting over 40 yards, a lot of them. So, a more like like a bigger fixed blade head or something, not a giant deal for them because you're taking shorter shots. I would say the same thing about whitetail hunters.
Yeah.
Like that's not a big deal. It's not you like if it's off a little bit at 20, it's like you're probably still in it in the kill
Right.
zone,
Right.
right? Um
The
so
animal's
but
big enough
there's
that
some
if you miss by a smaller margin, you're still probably going to hit what you were wanting to get. Yeah.
right. And like I think there's something to be said about competitive archers, okay, like target shooters. I don't think I've ever heard one target shooter, like on a podcast or whatever, or in an interview, say that they preferred fixed blade broadheads. And I think there's a reason for that. Those guys are paid to hit a penny, dude.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Right.
like the most common thing, I have a fixed blade that I really like, just to be transparent. Like I'm not like fixed blades are great. But again, they're not all created equal. Okay. And some of them have a little more variance than others in arrow flight. And these guys can actually see that, right? Like me, I probably can't unless it misses the target, like I was just talking about.
Right.
Okay,
Uh,
these fellas though, they're like, yes, absolutely, they have the knowledge to get a fixed blade broadhead to tune 100%. But even they can see there's a little bit of an inconsistency every now and then. So a lot of them shoot mechanicals because that inconsistency isn't there.
right. Yeah.
Okay, so like their biggest thing is accuracy, which for me that's what it all comes down to for me. I said it before, but it's accuracy. It's like I need to know that like yes, I have to make a good shot. It comes down to you. You're the one in the driver's seat, okay? But I don't want to have this like in my brain wondering, if my equipment is going to do what I need it to do,
Yeah.
okay?
Yep.
So, yeah.
It's the same. Like you don't want to know that 9 times out of 10 you pull your bow back, it's not going to snap in half. It has to be every single time.
Yeah.
It's no different with the broadhead. You want to know that every time I aim at that spot, however big I'm aiming at,
Mhm.
I should hit as long as I shot correctly. I should hit close to what
Mhm.
I was aiming at, and that's a good point.
Right.
And
And
one that I struggled with because I went out and spent a shit ton of money on some expensive
yeah.
broadheads, and I did not have the experience I was hoping to have as far as the flight, and I
Mhm.
had to eat my pride and be like, "Yep, I fucked up. I got to move
Yeah.
on. Like it is what it is." And
Yeah.
sometimes you
And
burn
like
money.
could you have like really you know, whittled down and got those things to
Probably
fly with your field tips? Probably. If you were to like, but who knows? Maybe that would have involved you buying a whole another dozen arrows and getting them like cut a different
refletched,
length
fletched
and
with.
like
Yep, yep,
and yeah, and just like trying all these different things out to get it to work. I'm sure you could get it to work. Okay, but that's a little bit of the shame right there. And some people think it. I mean, it's fun, right? Like it's like, what am I going to shoot this year? And it's like it's a fun like journey for them to go on to figure out what's going to work.
mm-hmm.
I'm a little bit like you though, and I'm like when I find something that I have a lot of confidence in, it's really hard to break me away
Yeah,
from that.
yeah.
Um, so so yeah, but for a newer bow hunter to think that, oh yes, I have to do it like this, you don't.
No,
You
no,
just you just
you're
don't,
right.
man.
Yeah, and as a new bow
Yeah.
hunter, you really don't want to go down that road of. I mean, eventually you might want to, and it can be fun. I fletch my own
Mm-hmm.
arrows. I mean, I don't anymore, but
Sure.
I have, and I do enjoy it when I have the time. But
Mm-hmm.
up front, as a new bow hunter, not the best idea. Like, find someone who makes
Yeah,
a
like
good arrow and go get the arrows and just move on
yeah,
with your
man,
day.
like focus on becoming a good shot and learning how to hunt. You know? And like you figure that stuff out, you have a little bit of success. Yeah, sure. Like whittle it down, like get more fine-tuned and learn more. That's what this is all about, it's about getting better,
Yep.
right? But you got to start something. You can't start off your bow hunting journey sprinting. You're gonna miss so many things. So many things are gonna fly by you. Okay, like walk, man. Like walk the journey and embrace everything around you, so you can really truly you're going to learn more about yourself as a bow hunter by doing that. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
like what makes you tick, what makes you don't. Where's my flaws at? Okay, one of my friends, Emery, he's always said like hunt your own hunt. That's like a phrase he has, and I think that's just so important to remember, man. Like don't compare. Try not to compare yourself as a new bow hunter. Like try not to compare yourself to other people. Everybody has a little bit different experiences, and from those experiences, we develop our own style and theories and stuff like that, and that's part of the fun. You know what I mean? Like you're becoming a bow hunter, right?
Yep.
Yeah, just soak that all up.
That's for sure. Yeah. And shoot your bow like Josh was saying. That's the best way to get better is shoot it. And I would also, as you're getting ready to the season, one of the ways that I became, and this is just me, and I would like to know
Hmm.
your thoughts on this. One of the ways that I became a better shot is when we got
Hmm.
into 3D shooting as a group of
Hmm.
friends. I've got all kinds of targets out here and I shoot them. But when you go to 3D courses, it forces you to shoot at different angles. It forces you to shoot in environments that aren't yours. You don't live there. Um, and it kind of like it'll tell you if you're doing something wrong or if there's something wrong with your bow or like if you're shooting 25 yards straight down, you're going to know if your third axis is fucked up or not. Like you're going to
Right.
figure it out pretty quickly. And
Hmm.
so that's when we got, I think, better as archers is when we started doing 3D. I don't get to do it as much as I used to anymore, just kids and busyness. But if I could shoot a 3D course every weekend, I would go do it. It is fun
Yeah.
and it can be competitive because you can keep score, right? And we
Sure.
kept score as a group. We would talk shit to each other like you were in a shot and you'd have to focus because your buddy's back there, and be like, "Don't fuck it up" or something like that. And so it's like it forces you to focus, and it was
Dude,
fun.
I I talk about this in the book, what you're talking about.
That
Like talking smack with your buddies. Like,
Yep,
dude, that works. Like put some money down.
yep.
Like put some money down on it. Like let's have some fun. So you're absolutely right, dude. Like you shooting at it's 20 yards is one thing, but like you start shooting at like 3D deer targets at like 60, 50 yards, you know what I mean?
Gonna
Like
lose some
there's a
arrows.
little bit more, it's a little bit more of a pucker fest.
Yeah,
Okay, because like if you miss, oh dang it,
yep,
there goes my arrow, right?
yeah.
And so there's a little bit more at stake, which is awesome.
And it'll show you. I remember, what was it, like 4 or 5 years ago? Andy had just got a new bow. And here's the problem with Andy. Andy is 6'6" and left-handed with a 32-inch draw. So he doesn't just like show up to a bow shop and go pick up bows. They don't have
Hmm.
those sitting around. So we were getting ready to leave for Colorado, and we went to a 3D shoot, the last one of the summer. And we just started the second half of the holes, or whatever you want to call it, the second targets. And there were a bunch of people watching because we kind of had a little, uh, you know, just group of people kind of group up. And Andy goes to shoot, and as he pulls back, he hears something, and he's like, and all of us heard it. And we're like, "What was that?" He's like, "Dude, I don't know. Should I shoot?" So I look at his bow. Russell looks at his bow, and we're like, "I don't see anything that's wrong, man. I don't. Yeah, go ahead and shoot." And he shoots, and his arrow makes it like 30 feet, and just boom, nothing. And we're like, "Uh-oh." So then we really get to looking at the bow, and his limbs cracked mid draw. 2 weeks
Oh,
before we go to
oh man.
Colorado, and I mean, that would have happened in Colorado had he not done the shooting. So like we had to really
Yeah.
scramble to get those fixed, and the company came through and fixed his bow. But you will find out if there's problems too. Like that's why we need to shoot our
Hmm.
bows, so that if there's issues, they come out when we're practicing and not in the really important moment. I mean, I guess it's always possible that the time your bow is going to break is that draw right there, and that would suck, but not likely. But yeah,
Right.
so I mean, what else? So we talk about you talk about all those things in the book. Any other like really important topics in the book that you think are important to bring up?
I mean, it's everything. I break down like the different styles, spot and stock hunting,
Mm-hmm.
calling. I have a few guest pieces in there from Jace Balderman and Brad Brooks. Brad does an excellent piece on calling elk, which I think is applicable to all types of calling. Jace does a phenomenal piece on ambush hunting. These are just areas where like I have spoke on them myself, yes, but like also I just these other guys have way more experience than me in those areas. Brad is an elk hunter, man. He does that every year living in Idaho. Jace is, he's super good at whitetail hunting. Like I'm not. I'm doing my first legit whitetail hunt this year with Jace. So like he just has more of an intimate knowledge of that type of hunting than I do. So I wanted to like let people have like the best of the best,
Yeah.
in terms of information. Um, so yeah, talk about that stuff. Talk about like how to get like tags. Like how do you get
That's
tags?
daunting. Yeah.
How do you do that?
Yep.
Talk about the different species of animals, a little bit of brief on the most popular big game animals we have. Talk about field dressing, packing out, literally everything, man. Like I feel like if you are a new bow hunter, um, you are going to be able to read this book. I truly believe that this book will help you fill your first tag. Will it be on your first bow hunt ever? I have no idea. But I promise you that all of the stuff in the book is proofed information. All of these things it is in there because one, it's helped me with success, but also it's helped people around me with success and
Yeah.
people around them with success. Okay, like I remember starting out bow hunting and like I mean, goodness gracious, dude, like I remember like wishing to miss. Like I just wanted to know what it was like to pull my bow back and put my pin on an animal and miss. And so like it can feel impossible sometimes, So like, but I promise you, with dedication, okay, you will like it's gonna happen. You just have to stick with it. You know what I mean? Like it just takes what is that called? You just have to, I'll just say it again, you just have to dedicate yourself to learning, and learning all aspects of your hunting. You
Yeah.
can't like just because you're like, oh yeah, I'm a really good shot at, like I can lace a target at 90 yards, that doesn't mean you're going to be able to bow hunt.
Oh, those
You know what
those
I
are two
mean? Like
totally different things. Yeah. Yeah.
right, there's a lot of moving pieces, right? So like go figure that stuff out, and learn patience. Patience kills, confidence kills. So yeah.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah, that target doesn't walk through the woods and then stop behind a tree and then look up when you stand up because your knee popped or something, like that target stays right where it is. The animal doesn't want to die. So there are two different
Hmm.
things. But like you said, I mean, getting out in the woods and experiencing those things
Hmm.
is what's most important. I think at least. I mean, shoot and go to the woods. Those are probably the two most important things. Shoot a lot and go to the woods. You know, and even
Yeah,
if you're not like
folks.
you can go hunting in the off season without being a hunter. Just go be
Oh
out there
yeah.
and see the movements and see what they do, and especially like whitetail, they change their habits up obviously a little bit throughout the summer compared to when crops are out, and things do change for sure. Obviously, the rut is crazy, but you can still get an idea of like a whitetail's mannerisms and how they act, and
Hmm.
same thing with an elk, and same thing with a muley. Which like a muley,
Hmm.
I've never hunted a muley. I've never had a mule deer tag. They're the oddest damn deer. They're the oddest cervid to me that there is. Like I've never figured out if I were to hunt a mule deer, I'm not even sure what I would do. They're just randomly in spots where I'm out elk hunting. They never seem to have what I would consider a pattern of a whitetail, but they kind of look like a whitetail. So they're weird, but I've never hunted one either, so I haven't really immersed myself in what a muley does. And that's kind of, the point is
Yeah,
getting an idea of what they
I
do.
yeah, I came up with a saying in my early years, never trust a mule deer. That's I
I
used
like
to
that
tell that
saying.
to myself, you know. Coos deer, we have coos deer down here, pretty similar to what y'all are hunting. Whitetails is just like a little miniature version.
Yeah.
And those things love walking in their same footsteps. They have a much smaller home range, and they're absolutely patternable. Um, the mule deer is a more of a nomadic animal, but there is there is a method to finding them, and pretty much how, like what I've noticed, especially if you're ever going to pattern one, I feel like it's going to be in the early season,
Yeah.
um, because they're in like a summer habit, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but what I notice with them is I kind of have a checklist. If I'm going to like a certain area and it's like, okay, I'm going to start here, and if they're not there, they're probably going to be over here, and if they're not there, I'm probably going to see them over here, right? Like they do kind of end up where they end up, and I think
Mm-hmm.
elk are somewhat similar to that. Like you can kind of find it. Maybe they're in one basin for a week, but then they're not after that.
Right.
Maybe they go to the next basin, right?
Yeah.
Which is why, just recently, a friend of mine, a good friend of mine, shot his first mule deer with his bow, and then fortunately he made a bad shot. Okay. And it's been, I don't know, 5, 6 days, and he stayed after it. He found the deer's still alive. But one of the ways that he found him was, I told him, I was like, because they definitely have their areas. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, have you ever bumped him? He's like, yeah, I've bumped him a couple times. Okay, like, where did he run when you bumped him? Oh, he's probably over there,
And he
and that's
was.
where he was.
Yeah. Yeah. He
So
went
like
back
that,
to where he knew.
they def right, exactly. They have their spots that they go to, but they might not necessarily be in those spots every single day. And I guess that's part of the fun of like mule deer hunting or something like that, is like figuring all of that out, to be like, okay, you know, if they're rutting, I normally see them right in here, and if they're not here, I normally see them down here. Like I have a bear spot where, like, if there's not hunting pressure, I know that the bears are going to be in this certain area, but if there is hunting pressure, I know where they go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that right there is that's just part of being a hunter. You are hunting. You're out there hunting down an animal. That sounds like brutal, okay, but that's what you're doing.
It's truth.
And learning that stuff is crucial to consistent success. A guy that only has one trick up his sleeve, with one trick pony, you know what I mean? Yeah, you might be able to be successful in this specific scenario every single time, but what happens when weather rolls in, or hunting pressure rolls in, or maybe like for like a lion. Like we got lions here. Like what if a lion's in the area and the deer push somewhere else,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like what do you do? That's where all the boot leather comes from, I feel like, and the watching, right? Like what happens when, like, you were talking about like mannerisms and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is like good stuff for like trying to get close to animals. Like how do you know when a deer is going to lift its head up? Stuff like, oh yeah, if his head's down feeding, if he flicks his tail, you better stop,
Right.
because he's probably going to lift his head, right? And sometimes they'll go back down to feeding, but their ears are back, and they're almost trying to get you to they're trying to trick you
Yep.
into moving, but they're really paying attention.
Or when they
So
sort of put their head, like they start going down with their head and then boom right back up. They
yeah, yeah,
they yeah. You son of a bitch! I knew you were gonna do
yeah,
that. Yeah. No. It's
yes, yeah, yeah.
it's
So
awesome.
just
But
all that stuff. There's a lot of moving parts in bow hunting, but I think that's one of the beautiful parts about it, is like, I don't care how much experience you have. I really, and I think, even, the veterans and stuff would agree with me here, is I don't think you're ever going to master it. You can get really, really good, but there's no way that you can account for every type of situation that you're ever going to be presented
Yeah.
and capitalize on it. So
I would
yeah.
not want to master it either because if you became a master, it'd get boring. If you were just
Right,
the
exactly. It'd be
best.
like, well, I'm just showing up and shooting one, like
Yeah, like, oh, okay, I guess I'll kill another giant deer today. Yeah, I mean, it'd be boring.
yeah,
I don't know.
right.
I'd like to see it. If I can get there, I'll let you know once I master it. If it's boring, I'll let you know. So don't hold
Yeah.
your breath, but I'll let you know.
Yeah.
uh, well,
That's
Josh,
awesome.
so on the book, why don't you tell everybody where they can kind of get a hold of your stuff and where they can buy the book and read it or gift it to somebody that's getting into bow hunting? How can they get your stuff?
Yeah, so both books, they're available on Amazon. So if you just search, you can search my name, Josh Kirchner, or you just search "Becoming a Bow Hunter." You'll find the book. "Becoming a Backpack Hunter" is the first book I wrote. Same exact premise as the bow hunting book, from front to back. You don't even, you know, you've never done a backpack hunt ever, all the way to you're packing an animal out of the backcountry, everything in between. So. Um, I think that, like I said, writing these books, the more that I've thought about it, I feel like now that I'm sitting here, I was writing a book to my younger self, right? Like, what did I
Mm-hmm.
want to know? And this is all of that information, and all of it is useful. Everything in here has helped me be successful, and people around me to be successful. So, yeah, available on Amazon. If you want to get a hold of me, just look up Dialed In Hunter on all the social platforms, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. I'm on YouTube as well. And I try to answer all the messages that I get. Sometimes it takes me a little bit, but I try to get back to
Yep.
everybody. So, and then my website, dialedinhunter.com. So,
Awesome. Well, Josh Kirchner, I appreciate you coming on talking about the book that I was excited when I first saw it because, like I told you, it's a question we get a lot, and you want to help new hunters get into the game, and this is a great way to do it. Is like, hey, I got some ideas for you, but maybe you go buy them this book and say, read that. That can help you.
mm-hmm.
Um, and
Yep,
so yeah,
100%,
I
dude.
appreciate on behalf of the bow hunting community. Appreciate you writing the book because I think it'll be a net
Oh,
positive for the people that are wanting to get into the game and help them get going down the right path for sure. So thanks for that, and thanks for coming on the show too.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on. I'm happy to chat anytime.
All right, brother. We'll see you.